So will tell us once we're live. Perfect. We are live. Hello, everyone. Good evening to everyone from Europe. Good morning to everyone in the US. Welcome to our webinar on the algorithmic shopper or commerce in FMCG. Before we jump in, just a little bit of housekeeping. So we sadly can't see you, you can only see us, but we can interact via the chat, which should be over there. So please write everything in the chat, comments, questions, whatever you need. We have a wonderful team in the background that's going to help us moderate the chat. And there's going to be a 15-minute Q&A in the end. So any questions that you have about the study or generally agentic commerce, please leave that in the chat and we get to it at the end. And we'll also share the recording. So if you have to jump early, no worries. There's going to be a recording. We're going to share the full report on our study, as well as 2 results dashboards in case you want to dive into the data. So hopefully there's a lot of content that you can have afterwards. Generally, this is going to be split into parts. In the beginning, we're going to talk about the study that we ran in 2 countries on agentic commerce. And then we are going to move into a fireside chat with our expert, Paul. So as you can see, I'm Louise. I am VP Research at Appinio, and I'm going to be hosting today. And I am really glad to have Paul with me, who is an expert in the field of agentic commerce. So Paul is the founder of the AI Praxis, which is an independent research and advisory platform on agentic commerce. And he's also the author of the Algorithmic Shopper, which is going to be published next year, right, Paul? So what you're getting today is a little sneak peek on all the content. But Paul has also written a plethora of research papers on agentic commerce, algorithmic readiness, and the transition from SEO to AIO, and also guest lectures at Harvard. So we really have the expert in the field of agentic commerce today. So I'm really excited to dive into all the topics with Paul at a later stage. And something I found really interesting when I got to know Paul beforehand, before he was the guru about agentic shopping, he used to work in big CPG companies on commercial leadership level for 25 years. And when we were prepping the session, Paul was telling me about an experience he had made at a previous company where one of the brands suffered from agentic commerce because AIs kept recommending a challenger brand, which kind of got him into this field. So I think Paul can actually relate with a lot of you guys in the chat. So I think we're going to get a lot of good advice today and learn more about the topic. If you don't know who Appinio is, we are your global market research partner, and we are built on 2 main pillars. On the one hand, we have a focus on strong methods that can really predict outcomes and a lot of research expertise. So my team of researchers is 90 people globally that can help you run research. But on the other hand, we also have a strong focus on tech enablement, AI, and efficiency. So the whole research process is really effortless and flawless. And with that, we do run a lot of research. And a new topic that we are researching a lot for our clients is the topic of agentic commerce, algorithmic shopping. What are people actually asking ChatGPT and Gemini all day long, and how does that relate to brands? But maybe before we jump into some actual data, I think we have to define what agentic commerce actually means, because I feel like the term is quite abstract. So I would like to hand over to Paul. Paul, agentic commerce, what is it? What does it mean?
Thanks, Louise, and thank you for the generous introduction. I appreciate it. I'll keep it simple because I think probably then we'll get into the fireside chat and explore a little bit more deeply. But basically, it's where the shopper is becoming the algorithm, right? So the consumer is still a human, and the shopper used to be a human, but they used to always be one and the same, right? The shopper and the consumer, the user and the shopper were one and the same. Agentic commerce is where one of those roles starts to be handed over to the algorithm, and they're both separating. So if we think about the last 30 years of our marketing history, we've always optimized for the human, right? The human pushing a trolley down the aisle or scrolling a screen. And agentic grocery shopping is the moment where the human hands that responsibility, hands the trolley over to software, over to a computer. And that's really what we're talking about here today, and we'll explore it probably in the fireside chat a little bit more detail.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. So in a nutshell, it's people outsourcing the shopping to ChatGPT and other AIs, correct? Right? Having them do the shopping, which to me personally is crazy. I love shopping. I love grocery shopping, so I don't think I would hand it over. But obviously, my personal one and opinion doesn't really matter. We need to understand what consumers do broadly. So we did run a study together with Paul in the UK and the US, and we've already run it in some other countries, most recently Brazil, and I think we're going to add more countries, but today's data is going to be focused on UK and US. And we had a very simple GenPub sample to really just represent these two markets. And we wanted to understand their current awareness rate, their adoption rate, what they think about agentic commerce, worries on the drivers. So I think for the next 8 minutes, I'm going to share some results, and then Paul and I are going to discuss and deep dive into what that actually means for brands. And the first thing that we ask consumers is their level of awareness. And actually, I was surprised on how high the awareness levels already were. So in the US, 64% of consumers, so 2/3, had already heard of agentic AI for grocery shopping. So they kind of understand what that is. In the UK, it was a little bit less, but still clearly more than 50%. So half of consumers today in these markets have an understanding of what agentic AI is. And considering how recent and maybe also a little bit innovative the topic is, those numbers are actually quite high already. But as a side note, of these people, only around 4% would actually call themselves an expert, where they really understand what it means. And around 15% say, well, I have heard the term, but actually have no idea what's going on. So we have a good distribution of knowledge levels, but overall, there's just 1/3 of US consumers that have never heard of it before, that only learned about the topic in our actual survey. So awareness levels already at this stage are quite high. And what I even found more impressive is that there's also trial. So in both markets, amongst those who are aware, 50% had already used an AI for shopping or recommendations before. Some of them are actually heavy users. So around 5% said they do it very often. They like to outsource the task already to an agent, but half of the people that are aware have already tried it. So we have a really strong conversion from you hear about it and you try it out. And if we compare this with other new technology or even new FMCG products, that is quite the high adoption rate. It is a little bit higher in the US, which is not really surprising as a market trend. Normally, the US is more open towards new developments compared to European markets. But overall, really, really strong adoption rates. And on top, if we look at the people that are not using it yet or have never heard of it before, 1/3 is actually open to try agentic commerce in the future. So we have another 1/3 that says, well, you know what? I'm not against it. I would actually try at one point. That sounds really interesting. What we then did was a deep dive into their motivations. So why would someone actually consider using an AI, or why are they using an AI for grocery shopping? And the results across the two markets are very clear. There's 3 key motivators that were the same in the UK and the US, and they are all around convenience.